Alright, so this is an update to my previous video about my opening my torpedo doors. I changed some things in the inside, which I'll get to in a moment, but here's the doors opening and closing. I have a push rod on there now that I'm using, so it's a little bit easier, or much easier than it was before. Okay, so, and how easy it is to take apart. You flip it over, parts come apart, and this is just like in the video from before. Mechanism slides open and close. One thing that I did was this particular square rail right here. I ran that on a flat file and on all four sides so that I can cut down on the friction within the square tube. But this moves pretty freely. Same with the top. This one moves pretty freely by itself. And this is the new arm that I came up with. It's an articulating arm, much like this one on that I did a search on not on YouTube, search on Google. Came up with all kinds of different arms of converting circular motion to linear motion. So I saw one there that looked interesting, and I thought that would kind of help with the problem that I'm having. So I constructed this one, and which is quite different than the previous one that I had, which was this one. And you can see here that as I'm pulling on the push rod, that the door is open and this articulating arm moves. Basically, I try to keep this arm in as straight or as parallel to this. I gotta come up, like Bob said, come up with names. Keep it as parallel to the main square tube as possible, to the main rail. That I call it a rail. So that's what it's a little bit. When the doors are closed, it's a little bit on one side. When you pull it all the way back, it's a little bit on the other side. So I'm balancing it between the center line. This arm here, depending on where the servo push rod is located on the nylon at the top here, I may have to make a new arm depending on the travel of the servo. The servo travels 3/4 of an inch, and right now I have this traveling at 9/16 of an inch, so I'd have to adjust it on the nylon rod up here, which I'm not that far yet. If I want to make further adjustments, I'd have to adjust the length of this arm right here and make a new one, but hopefully I don't have to go through that because this was a pain in the ass. Here's a little bit about that articulating arm. So this is the old lever. It was just one square tube within the other that slid in and out, and these pins would connect with the rails on the top part of the hull and the bottom part of the hull and move it back and forth, but there was probably too much friction in a radius or an arc that was causing it to not really move the rails good. So this is the new mechanism. It's a little articulated arm. Got the same kind of pin in there, which connects into the top and bottom rail, so it moves the upper torpedo tubes and the bottom torpedo tube doors. There's just this lever here. There's a pin. This pin is just peened over with a hammer. Part of this square tube was cut out so that the smaller square tube would seat inside, and then since it was just basically the top and bottom portion of the square tube that was open, it was kind of loose, so I soldered one size above and one size lower square tube in here just to hold the ends together. And so this is what's moving the rails back and forth. So this is unchanged, all this is unchanged, and all this is unchanged. The only thing that I really changed was this arm. And some other modifications that I did was, like I said, I filed all four sides of these square tubes, and they move pretty smoothly. As far as adjustments on this whole thing, the doors themselves, there's no adjustments that can be done with the doors. They're just hinge doors. These connecting rods here, they go from the doors to the push-pull mechanism. I have holes that are here, further in, but I found that they did not work too well. So the further apart these Dubro connectors are from the door, the better that it worked. You can see that it crisscrossed. And this one has a Z-bend, so it just goes up and over the other rod and doesn't interfere with it. This rod here has halfway through, it has a 1/72 bolt, and this arm and this one is separate from each other, so that on the top and bottom portion I can thread those in and out so that this hole and this pin, I can align them. Some other adjustments are these this stationary tube here that can be moved left or right to also align the pins to keep these rods parallel, these rails parallel to each other. I have a free-floating tube here just to keep the distance from this articulating arm and the rail equal distance, so there's no flex in there. Other than that, there are no other adjustments. I've been playing around with quite a few of them and moving things around and fine-tuning things, and everything's been working pretty good, and I don't need to add any more adjustments to it. If need be, on this pivot mechanism over here, the main plate here, I can move that in or out. I determined that from here to here, 1 inch is probably a good position for it. We'll have to see what happens when I get the servo connected to it. But other than that, it seems to be working pretty good at this point with this articulating arm. I have to get into more mechanics and plenty of things to look at. But before I made the articulating arm, I ended up starting to make these all these tubes and parts with round pieces. So this is not soldered in. This all just fits and slides together. I didn't get that far as soldering it, and so this all moves pretty smoothly. But like I said, I didn't really get to assemble it. Maybe this would work better. I don't know. The way that it's working right now seems to be pretty good, and as I'm sure that over time it'll probably work better as it wears in. Now, to show you how quick and easy it is to assemble these two pieces, all I gotta do is align this pin with the hole up here. They're together. And all I have to do is put in the bolts here, here, and on the inside, and there are 6 bolts that hold this lower section to the upper hull, and there we have it. So I'm going to wrap this up. I have a reason for having these torpedo doors open, and it's not for firing torpedoes. I'm not going to be doing that. But I'm not at the point yet where I'm ready to start working on that particular feature. So I hope you get something out of this, and I'd like to hear your comments. Thanks.